Monday, early September 2023. Infectious Disease Unit, Israel, Ministry of Health. Jerusalem, 8 a.m. Lab note number 1, Dr. David Vogelman, MD. I have finished my initial analysis of these strange bacteria that are infecting my uncle. All of the tests done in Haifa at the Rambam Healthcare Center tell the same story. I am apparently dealing with a close relative of the bacteria, Streptococcus agalacti, that defies all logic concerning standard bacterial growth. Last night, I harvested multiple colonies from the antibiotic plates where the bacteria grew and replated them utilizing the same sheep's blood media. However, instead of infusing antibiotics into the test plates, I decided to use antibiotic test strips to assess the bacteria for antibiotic resistance or, and I can't believe I'm writing this, to evaluate possible antibiotic utilization by the pathogen that's infecting my uncle. Typically, if a strain of bacteria is resistant to antibiotics, the area of the highest concentration of the antibiotic at the north side of the strip will show an exclusion zone or zero bacterial growth. The exclusion zone occurs because the highest doses of the antibiotic will prevent colony growth. This zone will present as a clear area on the petri dish instead of a darkened area where the bacteria are growing. However, with this strange bacteria, I have no idea what I will be looking at in a few hours after overnight growth in the incubator. Monday, 12 p.m. Lab note number 2, Dr. David Vogelman, MD. I'm officially terrified. I decided to look in the incubator 2 hours early and am observing something that defies medical and scientific norms. The bacteria that are killing my Uncle Yoni in Haifa are doing frightening things that I have never seen before. The cells have more than twice the usual amount of DNA and are 3 times the size of normal bacteria for this species. Even more frightening is that these bacteria are not only resistant to our most powerful antibiotics, but they appear to be eating our most powerful antibiotics, utilizing them as a carbon source. The bacteria are also displaying an unknown type of growth dependency on the antibiotics. They will not grow without the antibiotics. I have sketched below what I observed on the petri dishes following 15 hours of growth in the incubator. The antibiotic test strips display the exact opposite of what I should be seeing, the opposite of my previous description. Instead of zero growth around the area of the highest antibiotic concentration, the expected result, these bacteria have a growth enhancement zone around the highest concentration of antibiotic and zero growth in the low concentration zone. For that matter, these strange bacteria have zero growth anywhere else on the petri dish where there are no antibiotics. This pathogen shows an actual growth dependence on the 5 antibiotics I have tested so far: amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, erythromycin, tetracycline, and vancomycin. David stopped writing and tried to comprehend what he was looking at with these strange bacteria. For many minutes, he was lost in thought, his brow furrowed, intensely worried about what it would mean for Israel and the world if a giant bacterium with the ability to eat antibiotics began to infect the society at large. This new monster could take humanity back to the days before penicillin. The world took for granted that simple infections could be easily treated with generic pills today instead of becoming deadly. His thoughts were foreshadowing a potential dark place and time. David's mind then drifted to his early days in grade school. One of his teachers was reading the class a story about a Philistine giant who fought a battle with a young boy named David before he became king of Israel almost 3,000 years ago. The story woke him up many times as a child from fitful dreams, but he had not thought about it in years. Suddenly, he was 6 years old again, in his dark bedroom in the middle of the night, believing that the Philistine giant was hiding in the closet. He could not remember the source in the prophets where the story was written. For some reason, as if compelled, he got up and went to his computer to perform a search. 2 minutes later, after reading a couple of web pages, he had his answer. He went back to the lab bench and continued writing his lab note. With great apprehension, I am naming this new bacterial strain Streptococcus Goliath, after the biblical giant Goliath. The rabbinical commentary in the book of Ruth and the prophet Samuel describes the unstoppable giant Goliath. Because of this new bacteria's sheer size and its strange and large amount of extra DNA, the name S. Goliath seems to fit. Finally, these bacteria from my Uncle Yoni's cultures are also secreting massive amounts of a strange anticoagulant. This substance is poisoning Yoni and the Rambam Healthcare Center in Haifa, making it increasingly difficult for us to keep him from bleeding out. I know full well that this is an absurd concept, but I repeat it for whoever may read these notes in the future. This new bacterial strain, Streptococcus Goliath, is eating the antibiotics. Monday, 1:30 p.m. Lab note number 2, continued. I carried a couple of the culture plates back into the incubator room. I wanted to let them grow for a second day and see how fast these strange bacteria continued to eat the antibiotics before exhausting themselves in the growth media. As I had both hands full, I did not bother to turn on the room lights because the incubator has an automatic light that turns on when the door is open. However, as I approached the darkest part of the room and placed the plates on the lab bench, there appeared to be a faint red glow coming from the petri dishes. To better observe this phenomenon, I closed the door and allowed my eyes to acclimate to the darkness. When I looked again at the petri dishes and took off the covers, there was distinct red bioluminescence coming from the S. Goliath colonies and growing and glowing around the highest concentrations of antibiotics. Remarkably, the higher the antibiotic concentration, the brighter the red glow from the bacteria. I'm familiar with marine organisms and bacterial species that exhibit bioluminescence in the blue-green visible light spectrum, such as jellyfish. However, I have never seen or heard of any species that glowed red. I took out my cell phone and turned the exposure on the camera to maximum to capture the low red photon images. I have no idea why these bacteria are glowing red or what it means. Based on this strange bioluminescence, I'm sending a sample of the colonies to the hospital molecular biology lab and ordering the chief to conduct a complete genetic analysis of this new pathogen. I also requested that the lab looks for DNA that codes for luciferin and luciferase, the jellyfish and firefly chemicals and enzymes that cause bioluminescent organisms to grow. Final thought. If I had not walked into a darkened room with these S. Goliath samples, I would have never observed the red glow emanating from the colonies, and I certainly would never have thought to request a genetic analysis for luciferin. This puzzle of these growing bacteria is getting more frightening by the hour. The red light seems to be an evil expression of their ability to eat antibiotics and grow stronger from them. I await with apprehension the genetic and chemical analysis of Streptococcus Goliath that will come back tomorrow night from the lab.